So it felt important to speak about how we can support each other in transitioning to whatever is next. Some of us may still be in it, some of us may be already past it. We're all in different places, but I wanted to bring these women together separately. So we'll be hearing from them one at a time, and they will each be giving us a piece, a topic, aspect of this conversation that is present for them or that they want to speak to, as well as a practical tool, perspective, resource for us to consider. It's an invitation. We all have our way. So these are just some things that I wanted to bring to the rest of us. So with that said, we will get started. So we will have a conversation with a beautiful and amazing Jumana Sophia. She is a deeply trusted teacher, beloved ceremonialist, author, healer, and ordained priestess. Her work has touched the lives of tens of thousands of women around the world. She is the founder of Her Mystery School, which is an international women's mystery school, the founder of Aqua Mystica Water Temple, and the former co-director of the Goddess Temple in Ashland, Oregon. She holds the deep feminine mysteries in a safe, soulful, inclusive, powerful, yet practical mastery. So I'm really, really grateful that she is taking the time to speak with me and us about this today. So let's transition into that. Yeah, so the inspiration for asking, three women that I know who I turn to for counsel was just feeling that there's more than just me out there who is in need of a little support. And one of the women that I most highly admire and wanted to hear from is Jumana. I've been studying with Jumana for the last 5 years, I believe. And so I will let Jumana share with us.
Thanks, Yuvia. It's always good to have time with you. Yuvia and I had a sweet conversation just all around this about how there's a strangeness to this time, and that there's a dimensionality to it. It's bigger, right, than a lot of what. This is not a superficial experience, obviously, to be coming out in certain ways from a pretty enforced incubatory reckoning time. And, as Yuvia mentioned, she's been in her mystery school with me. It's a 9-month women's mystery school that I hold. And what I, kind of sensing into it, what I was drawn to is, in the 4th month of the school, we're in the month of the descent. And this is when we kind of turn to the annihilations of life. And one of the hallmarks of a descent journey is that it's an initiation that you didn't want and you didn't choose, right? And I think that it's safe to say that in general, for most of us, although we've all had very different actually experiences of this past, year and a half or so, that it was very initiatory, and it wasn't something that we chose, and it wasn't something that we wanted. So in that, what have we been working with? Surrender, right? We've been kind of pushed up against illusions that we treasure, or illusions that we don't treasure, but that we just can't hold up anymore, that the world won't hold up for us anymore. Definitely one of the ingredients of a descent journey always is death. It's always present because we're being brought face to face with the ultimate truth of our lives, right? Which is that we will die, and so will everything. And it's that meeting with death that is kind of brings forward the soul forging potential of a descent journey. So, in a way, at this moment in time, Yuvia was asking, like, all right, well, any thoughts on how to orient to this? From the body of work in the school, what I would say is that, all right, well, you look at it this way. There's been this long descent journey. it's not like we're all out of it as necessarily, but there's a shift there, at least in the collective understanding or awareness. There's this shift towards an opening up. There's kind of ridiculous notions of returning to normal. Like that doesn't mean anything when you've gone through a descent journey. So it makes sense that would feel empty or artificial or dissonant, even that invitation. And so, but where we are then, if we look at it that way, is okay, the opening back up is the ascent journey, right? You've taken this, you've been taken on this journey of loss of in different ways, of all different kinds, right? Of really facing, in the descent in the underworld, we face ourselves. And most of us have had to do that on some level and pretty intensively, whether it's because we've been very incubated and had nobody else to be with, or we've just been faced with our deepest fears, whatever it's been. But so on the ascent, so what is the ascent like? I think the thing about the ascent is a few things. It doesn't happen right away, and that there are things to know about the ascent. And one is that, when you're in the ascent, when we're coming back, what it is it's a resurrection, right? It's a rebirth. It is not going back to where we were before. It can't be, and I think that that's part of what some of the angst that some of us are feeling, and some of this, like, but wait, I don't even want that thing anymore. Or like, oh wait, I don't even have the energy for that thing that used to turn me on or inspire me or bring me joy. Like, oh, I can do it now.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, right. So when we're coming out of a descent journey, we have to reference who we've become, not who we were. And I think that's really important. And there's a way that, like, many of us might feel more fragile. There might be a vulnerability here, a little bit of a just kind of general disorientation, because many foundational things have been shaken up. And that's who we are now. So that's where we live from. And that's how we, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the tenderness of being in a way there's like a rebirth. So you're tenderly walking as a newborn in some ways, in some aspects. It's
we're more sensitized in a certain way. And so, we might have now really different priorities or really different communities. A lot of us have kind of, there's been a big character reveal, both inside of ourselves and the people around us, the world around us, and we're all finding our way with that. So
I love the piece about being more sensitized, because I feel like that's something that's really coming up for me and for some people I've been speaking to. Just the level of sensitivity has gone up, and it's unfamiliar. So a lot of people who weren't as highly sensitive in the past, or who had ways of distracting or disassociating from it, are having to be with that and to learn how to navigate with it.
Yeah. Well, what happens when, for whatever reason, you stop overstimulating, or all the crutches go away, or, all of a sudden we realize that we're feeling way more than we thought. And, what's amazing in a way about sensitizing, right? Okay. So on one hand, now you have to be aware of, it creates discernment, right? And you and I talked about this. It's like, well, now it matters. Because I really feel now when I go talk to someone, or when I go into this situation outside, like, it's a big deal, because I'm coming from a more incubated, more consolidated place. And so there's a way that maybe all of you are more aware of what it takes to interact, to, kind of track everything, and to really, things have become more precious. We've been walking with death. So all of a sudden, these are your moments. Mm-hmm. You're really feeling them, and it matters what you're doing with your energy. That's what death brings. It makes life more true, and it makes life more precious if we accept it fully. So, yeah, I think there is a greater amount of sensitization. I think partly, Yuvia, because what I hear from quite a few people, in addition to the struggle or the challenges of the time, is that there's been many ways in which there has been relief. Like almost like it's a snow day, you can't go to school, or like that thing you said you were going to do, all of a sudden you can't, and wow, instead of being disappointed, you're actually relieved. And that is a really important place for us to reckon with, because those were all places in our lives where we were holding up something that wasn't true in the first place. And to me, and that I think that's one of the pieces of like moving into ascending or moving back into life is, all right, we have to stay slow, we have to cultivate poise, and we have to really let ourselves see what we see and feel what we feel, and not question it, not let all the shoulds come in or all the expectations, because we are different. Mm-hmm. And there is a huge amount of power and potential in that if we don't squander it by just dissipating it away, by just kind of quickly hurrying into what we think, like bypassing our actual experience now to kind of return to something that might be kind of comforting, but it's like you and I were talking, and you're like, well, I don't really know if I went out, and I went out for drinks with my friends, and like it was different, and that is something to really pay attention to, because descent journeys, any interruption like this kind of like sets us back and can reorient us to a more aligned, the path that we're really supposed to be on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And something about it feels, there was so much of realizing the things that weren't okay before, but we allowed them to be okay. And now we had a taste of the alternative, and it feels good. And there's like a certain part of us that just wants to really protect that, because we know how much we actually prefer it. Like our spirit, our soul prefers this way. And then there's also this, like if I really sit with her, there's a feeling of refinement, like the warrior. Like I took my sword and had to like actually sit with it and kind of like refine it. And now that the world is asking more of me, like I just want to cut through some of the things and be like yes and no, and be just a lot more clear with it. Yeah. And like I could see that now because we're speaking, but before we had this conversation, there was still like it was me with the sharpened sword, but still not really feeling in my power to like use it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just so important to be reminded.
Yeah, and I think that's why, okay, in all sorts of different ways, we've been visited by death, right? And we've been visited by the dissolution of things. We've been visited by the descent on a cultural level, in personal ways. And what we don't want to do is act like we want to take that with us. We don't want to be like, okay, death, you visited me, and now just go away again and let me stop thinking about you again. Like this is now here, and we make space for it. We say, all right, well then now that I'm going to live forward from here, will you continue to help me make my life more true? Will you like kind of sit on my shoulder and be close to me and remind me that you exist? I think that a big part of what has happened here is that the denial of death and the denial of the extent to which we are out of control has been fully interrupted. These are the kind of illusions that have been dispelled in a pretty big way, I would say. So, yeah, and in that then, my experience is if I let death be close like that, I do get far more discerning. I get more grateful, and grateful in an authentic way. Like, wow, I woke up this morning, and this has been from my own experience of having death itself come very close to me personally, right? But what it has done is made it so that I'm like legitimately grateful for washing the dishes. Legit, and there's something there. What I would say too is like, a descent journey does strip away things that are treasured. It's not kind. It isn't kind, and it isn't fair. It's not this thing of like, great, this, it would be, I think, foolish to try to paint it or frame it as this awesome thing. It's not that. It's everything is what it is. Mm-hmm. But ultimately inside of it is soul forging. Inside of it is like, all right, if we really let it have its way with us and we're honest, then all of a sudden we will become more of who we were before. That's the ultimate promise of descent, right? Resurrection and rebirth is the promise of descent. So, I mean, I think that, I mean, one of the, when we were talking, you and I were talking about like how to orient to this time of coming forward and being different than we were, is to really, I think, to acknowledge what's gone and what's no longer living, but all sorts of things, right? That has to be acknowledged. Things need to be laid to rest with honor. And then to turn and look and really ask, just take a minute and ask a question like, how am I more than I was before this happened? I think a lot of what happens is we don't articulate. When I say, we need to stay slow and we need to cultivate poise, that means we pause here and we say, like, we don't just let it start rolling. I mean, this is kind of the insanity of the overculture anyway, is that it doesn't pause. It doesn't know itself well. And that's just simple. Slow down, ask. Really look and pull it forward. Wow, this is how I am more than who I was before this. And I think that means we move forward then with a sense of like, okay, I'm more. This I act some part of me is like, I want this part. I want this more of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that we're doing this, because it's like giving us a moment to do that.
Yeah, even in this moment, right? I mean, that's what this is. This is just a conversation for us all to acknowledge, like, hey, this has been an initiatory journey. And the way that you move out of an initiatory journey will determine a lot of what is actually accomplished through that initiatory journey. This is an important moment. This is very important. How we move back into whatever might be opening, whatever might be happening in our lives. And yeah, so I mean, I'm very grateful that you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. I think everything you said is amazing. And the wish that I'm putting out there is that we all claim as much as we can from this initiation, that we carry that forward, and that we're really clear on the things that we need to leave behind and cut out, but that there's like you said, a real pause, and that we really do it with awareness, so that it's be more intentional, to just really be more. It's not like there's the mystery school, and one of the things we learn in the mystery school is that it's not enough to just know that there's these things that should be done and there's these practices that are available, but to actually do them. That's been so powerful for me. Like the moment that I heard you say that, it was like, accountability. and because it serves us, because that's self-care too. So doing these conversations, like, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it would make a huge difference to even take 5, 10, 15 minutes and just have a moment, set aside the time and do the thing.
Yeah.
Do the thing of acknowledging the initiation and orienting towards how we're going to move forward. And just in closing, you know what, it's the thing that struck me from the first time we started talking about this is that I would invite us all to befriend the emptiness that's here. Like when something's empty, let it be empty and let it fall away. Just do not prop anything up. That is, to me, that is one of the biggest invitations here, and it will be uncomfortable, but just don't do it. Let it be dead. Let it be over. Because it's only when that kind of space opens up and the emptiness happens that anything can come fill it, but we have to sit in the discomfort of that for a minute. So I just want to say that I'll be there. I'll be in the emptiness. You'll be in the emptiness. We can all meet there and know that we're not in it alone, that we're going to be brave and we're going to let things actually continue to fall away so that we can rise up in a different way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Oh, that feels good to hear. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sophia.
Yeah.